Thank you. Now, my distinguished colleague from Virginia, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Walsh, for being with us. In your testimony, you talk about how you sort of bemoaned the fact that only 10% of American workers are unionized, which I would say is about 10% too many. You also say that it's a great priority of this administration to pass the PRO Act, to get more employees unionized. But if you look at the PRO Act and what it would do, it would force more workers into one-size-fits-all union contracts, subject more workers and job creators to union harassment, stifle workers' rights, increase union strikes. The American Action Forum found that employers could face more than $47 billion in new annual costs if the PRO Act became law. As you know, federal law already protects employees' rights to organize. But the PRO Act would reform U.S. labor. When we make reforms to U.S. labor laws, we ought to help workers, not just union bosses. The PRO Act would infringe on the right to workers and employees, hurt the economy by making it more difficult, more costly to invest in the American workforce. It overturns, as you know, right-to-work laws in 27 states. Of course, you've already said this morning that you're against right-to-work. It forces workers to pay millions of dollars from their hard-earned paychecks to labor unions, even if they don't want to be represented by a union. Of course, you probably also know that over the last 10 years, a couple $1 billion has been taken from member union dues to go to left-wing groups to help Democrat causes. The PRO Act would require employers to hand over their workers' private personal information to union organizers, including home addresses, cell phones, landline numbers, personal email, and more, without the consent of the workers. It would take away workers' rights to secret ballot in many circumstances, impose a biased card check scheme, which workers could be unionized without the union winning a secret ballot election. New penalties up to $100,000 could be imposed on small businesses for unfair so-called labor practices, and which would potentially close thousands of businesses that are just trying to come back after the government crushed them during the COVID supposedly mitigation strategy, bankrupt many small business owners. To say that we want to get more companies to unionize, more workers to be unionized, do you believe that the good of an organization, do you believe the good of an organization is in conflict with the good of its employees? Are the good of an employee and the good of an organization in concert or in conflict?
They shouldn't be in conflict. They should be very much together.
Okay, the union mentality pits an us against them mentality, employee versus union, instead of a concerted mentality where they're working together. In your opinion, when an advancing employee, someone who gets hired and they're an employee and they want to work up the chain, if you will, they want to advance their careers, when do they become part of the problem because they become part of management? Therefore, we need union to protect them from the company.
Well, before we get there, I don't agree with your assessment of unions in the way that you put it out there, that unions are bad and they're bad for business and they're bad for community.
Well, I think that you and your administration, Democrat majority, has demonstrated that you have contempt and disdain for employers and job creators and businesses, and you believe if left to their own devices, they would exploit and abuse and harm their employees. So therefore, we need these costly union organizations to protect them. So when an employee advances into management, do they become part of the problem just because they are part of management now?
Yeah, my recommendation...
Or should employees aspire to become part of management and to rise up within the organization?
My recommendation to you, Congressman, is I would have a conversation with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and ask them if the Secretary of Labor is anti-worker, anti-business. You should ask that question. I think the answer you'll get is surprising.
In addition, also your testimony really focused on the fact that we need to spend more money. You said that there's the American Rescue Plan has $260 million in it to promote equitable access to unemployment compensation programs. We've got 11 million open jobs in this country. One of the greatest contributing factors to the failed Democrat policies, the majority party, on our economy is the excessive spending on unemployment. Where did all the workers go? We've got 11 million open jobs. I have people close to me who work as employment consultants trying to help people find jobs, and these people are suddenly telling them in the last year and a half, hey, don't contact me until I stop getting paid not to work. We've grown the welfare state. We've grown the dependency state. How can you possibly say we need to make it easier for people to access unemployment insurance with what's going on in our country today?
Well, I think where the failure came with the workforce development right now that we're dealing with was the last administration not having a plan for the pandemic, either going into the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic, and there was no plan by the last administration. And President Biden inherited a plan that he needed to get people back to work, and in his first 13 months, 14 months of being President of the United States of America, 8.7 more million people are back to work that went to work the day he got sworn in as president.
How can you possibly say in your testimony that every dollar paid in unemployment benefits translates to $2 to boost the economy? How in the world does that? So we borrow money to pay people not to work. You're saying that helps the economy?
Well, I didn't say that in my testimony, but what I
reading from your testimony,
but
says studies have shown that every dollar paid in unemployment benefits translates to $2 to boost the economy. Page 4.
If you look at the facts and figures of what it is, the investments, that's what all the experts are saying. The investments back into our economy. I mean, your constituents benefited from that were out of work and don't have work today. So I'd recommend that we try and help constituents all across this country, including yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.